The biting wind will send temperatures from cold to bone chilling. All time out the chilliest weekend hours, and when we go from 17 to 70.
Durham police are investigating two shootings just a mile apart. An 8-year-old girl left with life-threatening injuries after a bullet came through this upstairs window.
And the Chatham County Sheriff's Office arresting a juvenile they say was found with a gun at school and threatened to carry out a school shooting.
The power is back on in East Durham, but people who live here and businesses are out hundreds, even thousands of dollars. Coming up, what you can do if you are impacted.
We begin here at 4 o'clock with a live look at some of the temperatures around our area. Not too bad, but don't get too comfortable. There is a second round of Arctic air moving in tonight, and those temperatures are going to drop fast. Good to have you with us. I'm Dan Haggerty.
And I'm Lena Tillett. Morning temperatures tomorrow will be as low as 22 degrees, even colder, 17 on Sunday morning. Meteorologist Kat Campbell is in the WRAL Severe Weather Center tracking this next Arctic blast. Kat, we will see the sun this weekend, but that's going to be deceptive.
Yeah, it's still going to be cold. The sun really not helping to warm us up much. And we have the wind. The wind is already really whipping outside today. But as we get into tomorrow morning, check out the futurecast wind chills. Single digits in Roxborough and South Hill, around 11 in the Triangle. Feels like 14 tomorrow morning in Rocky Mount, 15 in Fayetteville. Even midday tomorrow, our wind chills are still in the 20s or teens toward the Virginia line. And during the evening hours, if you've got Saturday night plans for dinner, it feels like 19 in the Triangle, 15 in Roxborough at 6 o'clock. I think the coldest wind chills are going to come very late tomorrow night. The best chance of single-digit wind chills would be between about 10 p.m. and midnight tomorrow into early Sunday. And that's when we could see those single-digit wind chills. As we get into Sunday morning, they could climb just a little bit, but boy, it is going to be cold out there no matter what. 36 is as warm as we get all day tomorrow, 41 on Sunday. Dry weather this weekend, but a huge warm-up is on the way. I'll let you know which 2 days will be in the 70s coming up.
All right, I want to hear about that. Thanks, Kat.
Right now in the WRAL Live Center here at 4 o'clock, we are following some breaking news. Alec Baldwin has been indicted and he will head to trial over that fatal shooting on the Rust film set. Here is the new information right now on Friday after these court documents have been released. The decision to indict Baldwin in the death of the cinematographer was announced this afternoon. And of course, all of this happened back in 2021 when that prop gun fired a live round in the ammunition during the rehearsals there. That's some of the video from the scene there. Baldwin has been charged with involuntary manslaughter. If he is convicted, we're told he could face up to 18 months in prison. I mentioned he is going to trial over this. The trial date has not been set. We'll certainly keep you up to date as new information comes in on this developing story this afternoon. Back to you.
All right. Thank you, Mark. The Chatham County Sheriff's Office is filing a juvenile petition after a student brought a gun to school. This happened on Wednesday at Northwood High School in Pittsboro. According to deputies, a 14-year-old student showed another student a gun and threatened to carry out a school shooting. Deputies then went to that teen's home, confiscating the gun. Deputies say they plan to file juvenile petitions in this case.
An 8-year-old girl is fighting for her life after a violent night in Durham. Police responding to two shootings less than 10 minutes apart around 8 o'clock last night. Those crime scenes on the map, Fayetteville and Liberty Streets, you can see just a mile from each other. Early this morning, the sheriff's office also responding to a car wreck near RTP, and there they found two more people with gunshot wounds. WRL's Monica Casey has been covering these stories for us. Monica, what do we know?
Well, the three adults who were shot last night and early this morning all have non-life-threatening injuries, but that 8-year-old girl had serious injuries. Police say her vital signs are stable right now. 35 people under the age of 17 were shot in Durham in 2023. This little girl marks the first of this year. Bullet holes pepper the home and multiple cars at this property on Liberty Street. Family members tell me the 8-year-old girl was upstairs when a bullet came through this window just after 8 last night. Broadcastify radio traffic says she was hit in the neck.
I got one female, she's standing, she's conscious, alert, breathing, she's shot in the neck, and I got another patient that's passed out.
That child was taken to the hospital with life-threatening injuries. 7 minutes earlier, Durham police had responded to another gunshot wound call on Fayetteville Street.
10-4. You got a probably 50-year-old male, conscious, alert, breathing, gunshot wounds to bilateral legs, one below the knee, another in his upper right side.
Just before 2:30 this morning, a Durham County Sheriff's deputy responded to a single-car crash in RTP. A Dodge Challenger was on the side of the road near the intersection of T.W. Alexander Drive and Cornwallis Road. They told the deputy another car was firing at them and caused them to crash. The driver and front seat passenger were both shot in the upper body. The person in the back seat wasn't injured.
And Durham police say it is not clear if any of these incidents are connected. No word on any arrests at this time. Dan?
Monica Casey live for us in Durham. Monica, thank you.
After nearly a day and a half in the cold, power for thousands of Duke Energy customers in East Durham has been restored. While the neighborhood is returning to normal, the outage came at a cost for people in that community. WRAL Shelley Jackson joining us live now in Durham with how this did affect some families. Shelley, for starters, folks lost groceries.
Well, that's right, Lena. I talked to a lot of people out here today, and they said, well, they are happy and relieved that the lights are back on, that businesses are open, and that life is returning to normal. More than 11,000 people lost power, food, groceries, and ultimately money.
With a tin can.
Wayne Hunt is literally pinching pennies to get groceries.
I'm going in to cash in so I can get me something to eat.
Hunt says he lost about $350 worth of groceries during the outage. He's on Social Security, which means he budgets pretty tightly.
A lot of meats. That's the big buck of it.
I was going to say, that's expensive stuff, right?
Right. The most expensive stuff is going to be my meats. And along with that, I have to stand in long lines to go get help, that means food banks, and anybody else that's going to help so I can survive to get through another day.
Duke Energy says if you think you experienced a loss due to the outage, you can file an online claim with Duke. The website says Duke is not responsible for power outages caused by acts of nature, but this outage was caused by Duke crews upgrading the grid. Hunt says Duke should make this right.
When you're in this position and it's your fault that your people made the mistake, it shouldn't be at the cost of the customer. It shouldn't be. Duke got to get better with that.
Now, if you want to file a claim with Duke, you can find the link on our website, WRAL.com. Lena?
I hope people are seeing this story so they use this resource. Shelley Jackson reporting live for us in Durham. Thank you.
So Apex Police, they've released now the 911 calls from that shooting involving a former Army captain accused of killing two of his neighbors. One of those calls came from one of the victims. WRAL's Matt Tallhelm has been listening to those calls. Matt, I'm wondering, are we learning anything more about this situation from these calls?
Yeah, Dan, we are including a timeline here, really 3 minutes. That's all it took for all of this to happen, from the very first call to the gunfire ringing out. Apex Police released all those 911 calls and held a press conference here to give us some context to what you're about to hear. It started with the first call to a non-emergency line here from a neighbor of that suspect describing some manic behavior of what he saw in his backyard.
But my neighbor's in the backyard just like screaming at the sky, and he's sort of like pacing back and forth.
That caller describes Harry Hardman's behavior in the moments leading up to the shootings in the Southwalk Townhomes community. 3 minutes later, gunfire rang out. The sounds recorded on the first call to 911. It came from Gabrielle Raymond's cell phone.
Hello?
Only silence followed.
We are confident, we are certain that what we are hearing on that 911 call is the moment that Ms. Taylor and Ms. Raymond are shot and killed by Mr. Hardman.
37-year-old Raymond and 69-year-old Nancy Taylor were shot to death outside their townhomes. As police rushed to the scene, another neighbor with a gun confronted the suspected shooter.
Where's the guy with the gun? I'm looking at him right now. I actually have him at gunpoint. But he's walking away. He's actually going. All right, do not shoot him. Do not shoot him. I am not shooting him.
Police say they found Hardman in his backyard with an AR-15 rifle in his hand. He dropped the gun and officers put him in handcuffs.
I definitely believe that the actions of our officers out there and challenging him in that backyard saved lives that day.
The police chief says they still don't know what caused all this, why this happened. According to some neighbors who told WRAL that Hardman had some issues with the HOA, that may have been a reason for all of this. Taylor was in charge of the HOA there, but the police chief says from their investigation so far, they have uncovered no evidence that was a reason, a motive for this shooting. The families of both of the victims asking for privacy as they grieve tonight.
Sure. I'll be honest, I'm at a loss for words listening to that audio. Matt, reporting live for us in Apex, thank you.
Just haunting. Well, new federal documents are giving us a close look at the investigation into the UNC student charged with shooting and killing his professor on campus back in August. The warrants show the suspected shooter, Tyler Chi, visited a Wake County shooting range in the days before the shooting. In his application paperwork for the range, he listed Zijie Yan as his emergency contact. Yan is the professor that police say he killed in the campus shooting. The warrants also show Chi bought a gun and a 9mm bullet days before the shooting. 4 protesters charged with blocking traffic on the Durham Freeway will avoid jail time. The 4 were involved in a protest calling for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas back in November. 4 members were arrested after blocking traffic during rush hour. They reached a deal with prosecutors. They'll complete 3 months of unsupervised probation, take an in-person driving course, and do community service in exchange for no jail time. The FBI arrested a North Carolina flight attendant accused of filming a teen girl with the phone taped to an airplane toilet. Coming up, what the investigation revealed about other recordings he made.
Also, a woman is out on bond, charged with felony hit and run for a crash that took the life of a Fayetteville man. WRAL's Fayetteville reporter Gilbert Bays talked to the victim's wife about the emotional pain caused by this situation.
New this hour, we are hearing from the father of a girl who discovered a phone taped to the toilet seat of an American Airlines plane. Her discovery led to the arrest of a Charlotte flight attendant. WRAL's Chris Levengood joining us now in studio with this story. Chris, the details here are disturbing.
I mean, they're hard to hear, Lena, no doubt about it. And not just because Estes Thomas was accused of doing this while working for American Airlines, but also because it's unclear where any of the recorded content ended up. Authorities say they found 4 videos of children using the bathroom on Thompson's iCloud account. So it's hard to tell whether the videos were shared elsewhere. All of these details are coming from federal court documents. The paperwork says the young passenger found the phone during a flight from Charlotte to Boston last September. Thompson is accused of using stickers, as you see here, to tape the phone to an open toilet lid. A 14-year-old girl was alert enough to catch this and took a picture of the concealed phone and told her parents. Thompson was arrested in Virginia. The 14-year-old's father is relieved.
It's been a really stressful, trying time for my family, and my daughter is just abhorrent, and it's just tragic, and I really feel for the families of those victims.
Thompson's accused of capturing videos of a 7, a 9, 11, and 14-year-old with more than 50 images of a 9-year-old on his account. He could face decades, as in more than 30 years, based on the charges he's facing in prison. The teenager's family has since filed a lawsuit against American Airlines, Lena.
Just troubling. Chris, thank you.
So in Sanford, deputies used Narcan to revive a woman who overdosed with 2 young children in the home. Deputies found Brianna Cheek inside a home on Farmstead Drive earlier this week, and while performing those life-saving measures, they noticed what you see in the video here, a large amount of powder along with drug paraphernalia. After getting a warrant, agents found over 200 grams of suspected fentanyl, marijuana, and cash. She faces numerous drug charges as well as child abuse.
The first absentee ballots for the March primary hit the mail today. You can request an absentee ballot until February 27th. A change this year, they must be received no later than 7:30 p.m. on Election Day. For the primary, that's March 5th.
For today's county by county coverage, we take you to Johnson, Hoke, and Chatham counties. We'll start in Johnston County tonight. That's where a new public safety center just opened. All county emergency services now operate out of this building on 70 Business East in Smithfield. The building is open from 9 to 5 Monday through Friday for those who need administrative services. Over in Hoke County, officials celebrated the opening of the new home space of the Hoke Area Transit Services, or HATS. These are pictures from the ribbon cutting today. The facility is located on Steel Road in Rayford. Previously, HATS was located in the DSS building. And in Chatham County, Cycle North Carolina will be riding through and stopping in Pittsboro in this year's Mountains to Coast tour. Some pictures from previous years. It's always a fun ride. The overnight stop is scheduled for October 9th at the Agriculture and Conference Center. This is the 25th annual cross-state ride. It starts October 6th in Spruce Pine and ends October 12th in Ocean Isle Beach.
All right, turning to weather now. It's hard to make out what this is. This is Grandfather Mountain, right, Sam?
Beach Mountain.
A beach mountain, and you can see all of these people hidden behind the blustery snow. I mean, you know, they love this, Kat.
Yeah.
We're not going to see anything close to this. In fact, we are going to have quite the warm up next week.
We are, but I mean, it's whiteout conditions this weekend in the North Carolina mountains. Sizable snow, more than 6 inches for many of the ski resorts. What a drastic change that we have on the way. It's going to be freezing cold this weekend. We get down to 17 on Sunday morning, and then we're up to 70 by Thursday and Friday of next week. So the Daffodils really going to love this warm weather outside. Our first day in the 60s comes on Wednesday. Each of these days, though, does come with the potential for some rain. Doesn't look like a washout, but just a heads up there. Temperatures well below normal for this time of year. We have this dip in the jet stream for the weekend, and that northwest wind aloft, that's what's pulling in all of the Arctic air that moved into Canada and is now moving into the Carolinas. But as we get toward the middle of the week, the jet stream begins to change. We start to see a southwest wind. We've got this ridge of high pressure building in, so we're drawing in much warmer air from the southwest. And then look at the end of the week, temperatures are going to be running well above normal. We even get into the pinks. So we really go from one end of the color spectrum of this map all the way to the other. It's going to be a huge change next week. But tonight, it's a great night for some ice skating out in Fenton and Cary. Not too many people out there right now. Hopefully the buildings maybe help shelter you from the wind a little bit. 48 degrees, a northwest wind around 17 miles per hour, and we are seeing stronger gusts around 25 miles per hour. If you are headed out ice skating, temperatures are above freezing, but they're going to be dropping down into the 30s by 8 o'clock this evening. It is pretty cold. It definitely feels like ice skating weather out there. And then tomorrow morning, check out the forecast. Wind chills, 7 a.m. around 11 degrees, 10 a.m. 16 is what it'll feel like. Feels like 22 at noon, and it will feel like the 20s at maximum for many of us throughout the day. We only actually warm up air temperature wise to 36 here in the Triangle tomorrow, 39 for Fayetteville and Clinton, 34 in Roxborough, but no 40s on the map. It is going to be a very cold day. Keep in mind, it is going to be breezy. I don't think it'll be as windy as it is tonight, but it is still pretty blustery out there with the chill. Snow's still falling in the North Carolina mountains right now. It'll keep falling into tonight and to the north. A heads up if you are traveling this weekend, you know, make sure that you're checking your flight, checking the roads before you head out. A large portion of the country does have some snow on the ground right now. We don't have any of that here in central North Carolina, and none in the forecast. After our cold weekend getting down to 17 Sunday morning, 19 on Monday morning, we see the turnaround by Wednesday. Thursday and Friday, we are back up to 70 for the high. It's going to be humid outside, and our low temperatures are only around 60 by the end of next week.
What?
Always exciting in North Carolina.
Sure, it's just doing North Carolina stuff.
Right, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
So next at 4 o'clock, let's get back to the cold stuff. Pool temperatures just 30 degrees, with hundreds of ECU students dove in for the annual polar plunge. You're going to hear from some of those people, the people who jumped in, why they were willing to wait hours for their turn. And ahead at 4:30, another round of Arctic air moving in with more than 55 people who have died from the last series of storms and cold air. See how FEMA is changing its response tactics.
WRAL's weather. This What's Trending report, sponsored by Rug & Home.
Here we go. I was told just 2 seconds before we came away from commercial to not be annoying about this first one, so I won't be. I'm going to be very, very normal. So we're going to start right out of the gate here, Lena. Who do you think is better at directions, you or your husband?
Okay, my husband, but it doesn't mean anything.
No, it certainly doesn't.
He's just better at it.
Well, I'll make you feel better. I'm the absolute worst.
Oh!
Yes.
And Kristen's better at it?
She is, well, I don't know that she is like great at it, but compared to me, she is like, you know, she could explore the world.
There you go.
I can barely get back to my desk.
We're already disproving this new study.
So here's the study. This is a new study. It attempts to figure out the difference between men and women when it comes to navigation. It's a study from the University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana, and they say men tend to have better skills in working navigation. They say it has nothing to do with intelligence or biological advantages, but more cultural, societal influence. You know, I guess men are supposed to be better at directions or something, which is what my wife tells me. No, I'm just kidding.
You know, I looked into this because I needed to know more. The example is, for instance, boys are encouraged to play outside more than little girls, which means they're learning to navigate outdoor terrain a little bit better than girls. At least this is based on the study. By the way, previous studies found no significant correlation between sex travel, range, and spatial navigation skills. My mother is incredible at directions. I'm just terrible at it, but I don't think it's because of my gender.
I think that we're all going to be horrible at it because of, you know, the
100%.
phones and navigation and stuff.
That's very true. I don't do anything on my own now. It's always an app.
Okay. I hope we never get lost together. We'll be gone forever. So yesterday we told you ECU students were gearing up for the 28th campus polar plunge, and today we have some video of just how they did.
So take a look here. Brave students and faculty lining up inside to wait their turn to jump into cold water. The tradition starting in 1997. As a way to kick off the spring semester, pool temperatures were in the 30s, but still 800 students participated.
I stood in line last year for 2 hours and I stood in line today for 3 hours. It's an amazing experience. It's just that cold initial shock, and I lost my glasses a little bit, jumped in with them.
You jumped in with your glasses?
She's great.
Okay. Which, I mean, we talked about whether we would do this.
Look how quickly they go to get out. That's
I
my
think
favorite part.
it's just fun. It's just a tradition and you know, easy to do.
Chris Lovingood joining us now with what's coming up at 4:30. Chris.
I would like to go on the record to say that I know that I'm better with directions in our relationship, just saying.
Oh.
If we end up going to Home Depot, but you tell me you know how to go to Lowe's, those are two different stores, Christy.
That's very specific.
All right, let's get back to news, right? We all know it, most of us drive it, but the question is, when will construction be done on the Beltline? Coming up at 4:30, Brian Schrader has new information about when traffic will get back to normal near the fairgrounds. Plus this story.
The woman charged with the fatal hit and run here on Bragg Boulevard has been arrested, but released on $20,000 bond, and the wife of the victim is furious.
Just like that, he was dead. And just like that, you get off not having it.
It's a story you'll only see on WRAL.
Stop searching for value in all. Shot in 4K ultra high definition. Your #1 source for local news. WRAL News. Coverage you can count on.
30-year-old Sierra Holiday was arrested and charged in the felony hit and run death of Rex Smith Jr. That happened January 11th. He was hit and killed on Bragg Boulevard in Fayetteville. Holiday was released on a $25,000 secured bond just one day later.
WRAL Fayetteville reporter Gilbert Bays spoke with the victim's widow, who's outraged the bond was set so low. It's a story you'll only see on WRAL.
Well, this case is still under investigation. Rex Smith was crossing Bragg Boulevard here, trying to get to the other side when he was hit and killed, and the person who hit him took off. 59-year-old Rex Smith Jr. was a family man who loved his wife and children. Leah Hamilton Smith and her husband were event planners. She says her husband was part of her team that made things happen in the community.
His hands was blessed. He could do anything, build anything, fix anything, and he was just always there.
But now he's gone. On January 11, Smith was attempting to cross Bragg Boulevard around 12:30 in the morning when police say he was struck and killed by a vehicle driven by 30-year-old Sierra Holiday, who fled the scene. Investigators tracked her down the next day and charged her with felony hit and run and death by motor vehicle. His family is outraged that Holiday was released on a $25,000 secured bond.
You left the scene of a crime and they give you a bond that low, and you posted it, and it was secure bond, and you posted it. To me, I would say that, I mean, I would think of it being like a flight risk as well, because you left the scene of a crime. What makes you think she's going to even stick around?
So right now, Holiday remains released on a $20,000 bond, but that might change when she goes back to court later this month. In Fayetteville, Gilbert Bays, WRAL News.
Now, in addition to the felony hit and run and death by motor vehicle charges, Holiday is also accused of driving with a suspended license and without insurance. Mark?
Lena, it was a record-setting day with stocks. Let's talk about the headline right now here at 4:31. In the center of the screen, the S&P 500 rallies 1% to an all-time high, surpassing the record set in 2022. Across the board, NASDAQ, S&P 500, and Dow all in green this afternoon. Certainly some good news. The big question, why is this happening? CNBC talks about that and breaks that down. The second two bullets right here, one of those, an unbreakable labor market. And also the tech sector is outperforming, according to those investors who are getting behind all of this. Certainly a good way to round out the week. Back to you.
Yeah, tech sector doing pretty good as well. All right, thanks, Mark. A 72-year-old man from Cary appeared in court today because of child sex crime charges against him. Richard Haltom is being held without bond. Police arrested him yesterday and charged him with 4 felony counts of statutory sex offense with a child between the ages of 4 and 6, and that was back in 2021.
Blue Cross Blue Shield of North Carolina acquired more than 50 urgent care centers statewide. In an announcement this week, Blue Cross said it completed its acquisition of all statewide Fast Med locations. You've seen this. Fast Med is based out of Raleigh. The cost of the acquisition at this point is unknown. The deal comes 10 years after Blue Cross North Carolina made an initial investment in Fast Med.
New this afternoon, a major road project in Raleigh is taking a bit longer than engineers expected. WRAL's Brian Schrader has new information about when traffic will get back to normal near the fairgrounds and the next big step in the 440 widening project.
I'm at the State Fairgrounds, where that big project continues to run Blue Ridge Road under the railroad tracks, Hillsborough Street and Barrel Road. And all new, the DOT now says this is going to take longer than originally planned. Here's a Sky 5 view of the big work zone. Preparations started to build a temporary railroad track here, but the DOT's Kim Diener tells me testing found the soil wasn't suitable.
We had to then work with the rail folks to get the soil repaired before we could prepare to work.
That project was set to be finished later this year. Now it's not going to be finished till the summer of 2025. The next step out here is construction of a new railroad bridge. That's going to last into the summer, and then crews will begin building Blue Ridge Road, adding a turn lane at Hillsborough, and also building sidewalks. Not too far from here, Sky 5 gives us a view of the 440 widening project, and here's what's new with that one. Crews are going to be working on the flyover bridge from 440 eastbound to westbound Wade Avenue, and that will lead to some nighttime closures next week. That project to widen the Beltline from Wade to Walnut is still on track to be finished mostly by the end of this year. Of course, we're going to be keeping up with the progress on these big projects here on WRAL News, and join me every morning as I get you around the backups. In Raleigh, I'm Brian Schrader, WRAL News.
Oh, so much to follow. Thank you so much to Brian for that. A group of educators got together today to discuss how artificial intelligence is impacting your child's learning. This comes just days after the State Education Department released new guidance on AI in education. The governor's Teacher Advisory Committee said AI should be used to individualize learning. Plus, teachers could use the tool to help build rubrics, lesson plans, and assignment prompts.
You still need that human touch, making sure that the users are good digital citizens, ethical concerns and things of that nature. And I think you always have to remember that it's a tool. And with any tool, we need to make sure that the accuracy is there.
Some educators say they worry about how access to AI could create another digital divide for certain students in school districts. They also discussed concerns about how teacher and student data could be abused. Still ahead, another round of Arctic air set to deliver dangerously cold temperatures from the northeast to the south as more winter storms are slamming the west coast. How FEMA is changing its response to adjust to these deadly storms. Plus,
how did police handle that big protest in November that blocked the Durham freeway? We'll check Senator Tillis's claim coming up.
North Carolina Senator Thom Tillis wants harsher penalties for protesters who block public highways. He recently announced a new bill mentioning the protests last year that blocked the Durham freeway.
Now, earlier in the newscast, we told you about the 4 protesters who will not get jail time for that incident. Tillis has questioned the police response, saying that no one was arrested. Paul Spade digs into that story for PolitiFact.
Was anyone arrested for blocking the Durham freeway last year? Well, check out this press release from Senator Thom Tillis, who introduced a new bill to bring penalties, harsher penalties on people who block the roads. It says, in November, protesters blocked the Durham highway during rush hour, but that no arrests were made. Now, is this right? No, Durham police didn't arrest anyone on November 2nd, the day of the protest. They said their priority was clearing the road as fast as possible. But 2 days later, they issued this press release announcing they'd obtained warrants for 4 people involved in the protest. We covered that protest on November 2nd and later when those 4 protesters turned themselves in. Now, when we reached out to Tillis's office, his spokesman pointed out that WRAL didn't use the word arrest in our digital article about the protest, so we reached out to the Durham Police Department and asked, hey, were those protesters actually arrested when they turned themselves in? And the DPD sent this reply, yes, all 4 women turned themselves in at the Durham County Jail and were placed under arrest. They were then released with a promise to appear in court. So Tillis was wrong. Arrests were made, and that's why the Truth and Meter rates his claim false. Now, those 4 protesters, they just reached a deal with prosecutors in Durham to avoid jail time. Read the details of that agreement on our website, WRAL.com.
New at 4:30, President Biden has signed a stopgap funding bill to prevent a partial government shutdown. Congress passed the short-term spending extension bill last night, successfully averting a government shutdown, at least for now. Biden's signature now creates new funding deadlines of March 1st and the 8th. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and House Speaker Mike Johnson have some agreement on the budget. In a new wave of student loan forgiveness, the Biden administration is canceling $5 billion in debt. The president says 44,000 approved borrowers are having their education debt wiped clean after 10 years of public service. This includes teachers, nurses, and firefighters. Nearly 30,000 others have worked toward repayment for at least 20 years. However, they never got the relief they earned through income-driven repayment plans. We aren't the only ones preparing for another blast of Arctic air. Across the country, winter weather will again threaten lives, and that is why in a few minutes we will explain what FEMA is doing to address this. Kat?
And the Arctic air is moving in. You can feel it with the wind, a really sharp wind out there, gusting to about 34 miles per hour in the Triangle now. I'll have a closer look at how cold it'll feel this weekend coming up.
I'm Gerald Owens. Coming up in our news at 5 o'clock, public pushback over a proposal to increase homeowners' insurance rates. WRAL Capitol Bureau Chief Laura Leslie explains the rate hike plan and the ripple effect it could have for the state insurance commissioner who wants to be reelected. Then it's Friday, and that means 5 on Your Side has this week's restaurant ratings report, where inspectors found kitchen gear, including the chicken prep sink with dried food residue. And the Morrisville restaurant with only 1 inspection on record that received our lowest score this week. We'll have those stories and more at 5 o'clock. Chris?
All right, thanks, Joe. We'll see you in just a bit. A historic home is on the move in Raleigh. Renowned NC State architect Jordan Matsumoto designed this nearly 70-year-old home right here on your screen. It was slated for demolition before a Raleigh family stepped in to save it, planning to move it 7 miles to their own backyard. Well, tonight, crews are making their final preparations before the house hits the road tomorrow before dawn.
Right now.
Well, right now we are set to, they're going to move the house today from its current spot on top of the hill down to the end of the driveway. So it'll be ready to roll, in theory, at 4:30 in the morning.
Now, the move is expected to take several hours, but once it reaches its new home on Delmont Drive, the work isn't over. It has to be reassembled.
It has been a dangerous winter for many. At least 58 people have died across 10 states facing round after round of winter storms. Now more than 100 million people are under winter weather alerts from coast to coast. Ivan Rodriguez reports on how FEMA is changing the way it responds to natural disasters.
Watch your step right here, big one.
American Airlines passengers deplaned with the help of firefighters on Thursday after this aircraft slid off a snowy taxiway in Rochester, New York. Just one example of the potentially dangerous travel conditions expected in the Northeast this weekend. Extreme weather conditions have killed at least 58 people across 10 states in the last week. Major cities in the Northeast are expecting heavy snow in the coming days, with Philadelphia preparing for its first major snowstorm in 2 years. Workers there trying to mitigate slick streets with salt.
The ice didn't melt on them, even though we treated it. So we're out there treating it again, and we'll continue treating it.
On the West Coast, Oregon is under a state of emergency due to the ongoing severe ice storm. Oregonians aren't the only ones suffering. Another blast of cold air is sending temperatures into a tailspin, with wind chill alerts stretching from the U.S.-Canada border to northern Florida. Meanwhile, FEMA is changing the way it responds to natural disasters, announcing an immediate $750 in assistance to people impacted by extreme weather, which can include storms, hurricanes, and tornadoes. The overhaul of FEMA's system comes after years of criticism that disaster survivors have to jump through hoops to access assistance. These changes will take effect in March. In Atlanta, I'm Ivan Rodriguez.
There have been 2 days without heat in dozens of buildings at North Carolina A&T in Greensboro. That's why today was a remote learning day. The university says the heating problem was cleared up Thursday afternoon. That's after students spent 2 days out of their residence halls because of a lack of heat. University leaders say mechanical problems knocked out heat to 30 buildings. The school worked with hotels to find temporary housing for more than 500 students. Hundreds more chose to stay with family or friends. I'm going to take you outside here right now. Over at Appalachian Ski Mountain Resort, people out there right now just enjoying themselves, going down there. See some people snowboarding as well. And my producer, Sam, in my ear is telling me that she's so jealous right now.
Me too, Chris. Me too. Look at all that snow that the mountains are seeing. We're not going to see any of it. What I am not jealous of, these temperatures. These are the high temperatures tomorrow at our North Carolina ski resorts. Sugar Mountain, 7 degrees, 11 at App, and Beach Mountain, just 5 for the high tomorrow. So it is really going to be cold. It's going to be blustery out there for the skiers. You need your best and warmest ski gear if you are going to try to head west, but you got to be really careful on those roads. Now, if you're thinking about snow around here, let's talk about the average monthly snow. January is traditionally and historically our best month for snow, averaging about 3 inches. But February is the second best month for snow at just under 2 inches of snow on average. So we're not necessarily done with winter or snow chances just yet, but we'll keep an eye on it for you. 17 is our low temperature overnight Saturday into Sunday morning. Next Wednesday, we're at 65 for the high, and believe it or not, we've got some 70s. So if you're a fan of the warmer weather, let that carry you through the next couple of graphics I'm about to show. 17 for Sunday morning would be the coldest low in 389 days. We haven't been this cold since December 26th of 2022. It is really going to be cold. 17 for Durham and Raleigh, 16 in Roxborough, 15 Siler City, 16 Roanoke Rapids, and 18 in Wilson Sunday morning. 18 for Fayetteville as well, 17 in Smithfield, 15 in Sanford, 17 in Rayford, 19 in Clinton. A cold start Sunday morning. We do have the Arctic front that has cleared the area. It did very early this morning. We cleared out nicely. Now we've got the wind, and that's what's ushering in much colder air. The wind is going to lead to some bitter cold wind chills overnight into early tomorrow. Meteorologist Mike Mays is going to have an hour-by-hour look at the wind chill forecast coming up in the next half hour. Tonight, lows dip into the upper teens to mid-20s across the area, 19 in Roxborough and South Hill, low 20s in the Triangle. It is going to feel more like the low teens, though, in terms of the wind chills. Tomorrow, this is as warm as we get all day long, so only a couple of hours above freezing tomorrow. 36 the high in Durham as well as Raleigh, 37 for Rocky Mountain Southern Pines, 34 toward the Virginia border, and 39 for our southern counties. The 7-day forecast shows a huge temperature turnaround on the horizon, though. Once we get past the bitter cold this weekend, check out next week. We start out Monday with sunshine, 52, pretty much right on par for normal this time of year. We're near 60 on Tuesday, mid-60s Wednesday, and then we have 2 days with high temperatures set to reach the 70s coming Thursday and Friday of next week. Each of those warm days does come with a chance for rain, but it looks like a window of time, so not a total washout. But heads up, It's going to be humid too.
I'm nearly 3 years into living in North Carolina, and I'm still adjusting to sometimes it's cold, and then bam, we're back in the 70s.
There is no adjusting. The bottom line is it's nuts, and you just got to follow every temperature that it brings. Thanks, Kat. So being healthier and losing weight often go hand in hand when people think of bettering themselves. Next, why you should look beyond a number on the scale when determining your health. And nearly 50 people sickened with salmonella after eating meat sold at Costco and Sam's Club. What to check for in your fridge?
Many of us have being healthier on our ways of bettering ourselves, that list that you always make. For some people, though, that may mean losing weight.
Mandy Gaither reports on what makes a healthy weight that is so key and why diet and exercise don't help everyone.
In the U.S., it's long been considered a serious health issue. Being overweight or obese can lead to dangerous problems. But when it comes to the number on the scale, one size may not fit all.
You can't just judge the book by its cover and assume that someone that is larger is unhealthy and someone that is lean is healthy, right? That's the assumption that people make. And I call that practicing street corner medicine.
In the Chasing Life podcast, obesity medicine physician scientist Fatima Cody Stanford says weight doesn't necessarily dictate health. She says it's just one factor that plays a role, but by itself, it doesn't give the whole picture because it doesn't show a person's ability to function and perform at that weight.
Someone who's lean may be very unhealthy, and someone who's heavier may be healthier.
While healthy eating and exercise are both important to health, some experts say not everyone will lose weight that way, and the research around obesity is changing.
What we're starting to see is that there are actually different types of overweight and obesity, different classes. You could even call them class A, class B, class C, and they respond to different things.
Dr. Sanjay Gupta says there are some people who respond better to healthier lifestyle changes while others won't. That's why he says weight loss drugs are gaining popularity because of the number of people they can potentially help.
What the challenge is for a lot of doctors, especially obesity medicine doctors, is trying to figure out which class of people, a class of patient they're actually dealing with.
Just fascinating. That was Mandy Gaither reporting. Dr. Stanford says severe obesity is classified by body mass index, or BMI, alone, which she says is flawed.
Some charcuterie meats sold at Sam's Club and Costco are being recalled. That's because of a salmonella outbreak. The FDA is warning customers not to eat the meat from the Brasetto charcuterie sampler. That's the one from Sam's Club. The same goes for the Fratelli Beretta brand Antipasto Grambaretta from Costco. You're recommended to throw them out. So far, 47 cases of salmonella have been reported since January 5th.
A new report shows renting is still more affordable than buying a house in much of the country. Real estate data provider Adam says renting a 3-bedroom unit is cheaper than a similarly sized house in 90% of markets in the U.S. Costs for both options are continuing to rise, though, which is causing a financial burden for many people. The most affordable regions for renting include the Midwest and the South. Mark?
All right, Lena, coming up today at 5 o'clock, we are monitoring the traffic situation as you head home from work. A live look outside for you. The traffic map showing one area of slowdown right by RDU. These are the inbound lanes eastbound from Durham. Also, JetBlue and Spirit now appealing the judge's ruling that blocked their merger. Following these stories, see you at 5.